Good day and welcome once again to Moments with Dr. Steve. I'm Dr. Steve Bonenberger and I love what we do. I love the fact that you invite us each and every day into your home, into your hearth, into the world and the universe that you live in. We never take that for granted. And we're always grateful for wherever you find us, however you find us. Doesn't matter the country or the time zone or the ethnicity or what you male or female, young or old. We just have lots of people that tune in because we focus upon creatives. We love creatives. We love people that stop their world and decide to create things that have value that we believe God implants and inserts in their hearts. One of the things I long ago started doing, and I've been doing it for many years, as many of you know, is introducing you to other creatives. If you're a creative and you've got something special that you have crafted or are crafting, ping us at saintalegious.org and we will gladly talk to you and see if your stuff has the kind of lather and merit that we look for. Now, in this chunk, we're going to be dealing with a very, very interesting lady that I've met several years ago. Her name is Angela Hughes, and she is a novelist, but she is in a different world than I am. I'll let her tell what world she's in. I'm more of a traditional kind of a sci-fi thriller kind of a writer when it comes to my novel work and storytelling, but she's very different. And I love the work that she does, and I think she's an accomplished person. And so we wanted to introduce her to you. She has a website, AngelaRHughes.com. AngelaRHughes.com. Stop your day, whether you're listening on a mobile device or headphones or in your car. Remember that name, AngelaRHughes.com. Go there, and of course, we always ask you to buy their book and to help a starving artist, right? So, Angela, we welcome you to our program. Good to see you on this day.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to get to be on the show and be a part of it.
Well, it's fun. We've been doing this many, many years, and now you're a part of this, this great stream of information and literature creators and creative creatives that we've been doing for many years. But Angela, this is your time, and we want to focus on you. So if you could, in a snapshot, tell us a little bit about Angela Hughes. How is it that you came to the place where that you said, because every writer has to come to the place, Angela, where they notice that that first off they have something to say,
yes,
but then that they can write. So how did that happen for you? When did the light bulbs kind of go off and you thought, well, maybe I can do this, and maybe this story has value, and maybe I can sit down and take a pen and paper or typewriter or iPad, whatever it is that you use, and I can start cranking this out. How did that happen for you?
It was a little bit of a journey for me. I can look back now and see where the gifting was there all along. But I had kind of assumed I wasn't the sort of person that wrote books or told stories, not because I didn't have stories to tell, but because I thought there was a certain type of person that could write books and write them well, and I just didn't fall into that category. I remember when I was in high school, I took a professional writing class just as an extra elective. And when I took that class, writing in that class did something for me that was really unique. I had never experienced before, where I fell in love with poetry and I fell in love with writing. But still, even in the end, I didn't think that I had the chops. I wasn't that right kind of person. As much as I enjoyed storytelling and writing, for some reason, I had already disqualified myself. But I'd always been a creative. I'd been an artist. But funnily enough, it was as I kind of had this encounter, and this story came that filled my head, almost like I was dreaming, but I was awake. And this story would not let me go. It was so inspiring. In fact, I fought against it for a while because I felt it very distracting. I felt that it was taking up my time. It was taking up too much headspace, but it would not stop. It persisted. And I kept thinking, man, I wish I knew someone who could write this. I wish I knew someone who could tell the story, because it's a really good story. And I was really on a journey of kind of discovering that if this story was going to be told, there was only one person that was going to tell it, and it was going to be me. And I needed to be brave enough to write it. But even then, I was intimidated. I think that whole feeling of being a pretender, and nobody else in my family wrote books, and I had never really written a story longer than maybe 20 pages, and just feeling like, how could I write this book? I don't even know if I can, even though I all of my life have been an avid reader. My husband calls me the great consumer, so that means I read a book a week or a book every 2 weeks. I love to read, so I was very familiar with literature and books and fantasy genre, but I just didn't feel qualified. And but I started telling myself over time, but maybe I could do this. Maybe I could change my stars. Maybe I could do something. Maybe I'm meant to do something that I didn't know all along I was meant to do. And so I started telling my husband and people close to me that I was going to do this thing. I was going to write a book, but I was still scared. And I went on a vacation to Northern Ireland with a group of friends. And I had told nobody except for like relatives and my husband that I was thinking of being brave enough to write this story. And we were literally in Northern Ireland on a hill that overlooked just this beautiful landscape. And behind me was this giant stone that had been the inspiration for C.S. Lewis's Language in the Wardrobe, for the stone table. And I'm just minding my own business. I'm staring out at this landscape, just in awe of how beautiful it was. And a friend of mine wrapped his arm around my shoulders and said, "So when are you going to write that book? The mantle of C.S. Lewis is falling on you right now, and you're meant to write." And I felt that was a pretty incredible sign. And it was at that moment that I kind of decided, I'm going to write this story. I'm going to try my darndest. And at the very least, my family will read the book. So that was kind of my starting place. But it was amazing as I began writing, how all of a sudden I started meeting people. I met Bray Wyckoff, and I was introduced to KWA. And I remember I got a coaching appointment with Bray. I just decided, if this is worth doing, it's worth investing and getting a little coaching. I don't even know what I'm doing. And I remember part of what I had paid for only allowed him to do like a short chapter review. There wasn't any like Zoom call, but he was like, "Angela, we got a Zoom call. I got to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "You are a fantastic storyteller." And I could tell he believed in my story. And it got me really excited. And from then on, I went, you know what, maybe I do have the chops. Maybe I could write a book. And I always have this belief system that, I can do hard things. And if I say I can learn. And you don't learn to play a violin, without learning the notes and beginning to play. And I thought, I've just got to start playing and see what happens. And in the midst of writing my first novel, I learned how to play. I learned how to use my imagination, and I discovered a world of writing that I feel like people don't understand until they become a writer. This world that exists when you write, that is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever discovered. And honestly, it brought me back to some of the earlier places in my life where I went, I was always meant to do this, but it took me all these years to discover that. And so that was kind of my process. I had a lot to learn, and I learned it really quick about how to tell a story and how to tell one with good pacing and all the things that you learn. But, in the end, I ended up with a book that I am very proud of. And I am now on the third book in the series. And I have books and books and books in my imagination that are just waiting to be written.
Her name is Angela Hughes. You can find her at angelarhughes.com. And I love that story. I love to find out how it was that people started this process or launched themselves into it. Let's talk about your series. It's called Once and Future Chronicles. Now is when I hope you have a copy that you can hold up and show our dear viewers and listeners. See that, folks? Eleanor and the Song of the Bard. I have not read it, but I've read kind of excerpts from it. It's delicious material. And I asked her to tell us a little bit about The main character, obviously, her name is Eleanor, and something good there. And I asked you to give me some ideas about it. And you said, first off, that this girl is fatherless. Let's talk a little bit about what that means for the storyline.
Well, she's kind of introduced, just to give you a little backdrop, my book is set in old Arthurian legend, which would be the setting of the 6th century. So this is a much older Arthurian legend. There's no castles, there's no knights in shining armor. We're back to the more rugged Welsh old world of the British Isles, kind of just after Rome had left. So I have a lot of history intertwined. And then I have my sci-fi bit of the story, and that includes Eleanor. She is a girl who gets captured through time. So she is actually not an original part of the Arthurian legend. And my Arthurian legend begins at the end. So Arthur's dead. Merlin's reeling. And I have a younger Merlin character. He wants to die. His purposes have been destroyed. And one of my main themes is what happens after the worst? What happens when everything falls apart and there is literally no hope as far as you can see?
Wow.
Everything has been blown apart. Every prophecy, every dream, everything is dead. And that's kind of the beginning of my book. You have a Merlin who's reeling through grief. And then in comes this character, Eleanor. And I definitely didn't write her as me. But she was my eyes into the Arthurian world for sure. And she's hurtled through time. She finds herself in this new world and she doesn't know why. And the characters don't know why. And she struggles to find her place. And one of those reasons is because she is fatherless. She is an orphan. She is a character that never had a whole lot of identity to begin with. And so coming into this new world, and she's a mystery, she struggles to find her importance or even why she would be significant to anybody, but quickly discovers whether she believes it or not, there is cataclysmic things happening that are forcing her into a story she didn't know she was a part of.
And you mentioned to me that a big part of her character and her development is based on her grief and sorrow. Give us just some snapshots of the kind of grief that she has to stare down.
Well, the grief definitely is on both. I kind of have two POVs going on. I've got my Merlin POV, and then I have Eleanor's POV.
Push
And
pause. POV, for those of you that don't know, if you're not a writer, point of view. Go on, please.
yes. So they really are both my main characters because you're seeing through both of them telling the stories. They kind of shift back and forth. And with Merlin specifically, he's the one dealing with grief. He has had a lot of loss in his life to an extreme degree that he's not willing to just easily jump on a ship called hope. You know, he doesn't really believe in hope. But here's this girl who's carrying a load of it. But she's also struggling because she has this very severe relationship with her family from the future world that has kind of tainted her. She prefers to be alone where she's safe. She prefers to be in a controlled environment, away from people, away from a world that could hurt her. And so you have kind of this dynamic going back and forth where she and Merlin actually begin to pull gifts out of each other and pull each other up out of the mire so they can discover maybe who they were meant to be.
That's awesome. Her name is Angela R. Hughes. Please head over to her site and pick up a copy of her books. The one we're talking about is based on her series, Once and Future Chronicles. The name of the book is Eleanor, and show us the book again. Show it to us. Eleanor and the Song of the Bard. If you could, tell us what, we just have a few minutes left. What a wonderful time. I want to come back with you in another day, and I want to talk about your story origin and how you started writing, because I thought that was fascinating. By the way you know that you've got my attention is I don't interrupt you and I let you talk. I find it fascinating what you're saying. Give us, if you would, what does writing do to you? Not to anybody else. If no one picks up, no one hears about it, it stays in a sealed, vault in the bottom of some ocean. Writing does something to all of us
Mhm.
that write. What does it do to you?
You know, there are so many unique things that I discovered becoming a writer, but one of the most powerful things that happened to me as a writer, as I wrote my stories, is I encountered some of my own pain. Because as a writer, the best writers have to be vulnerable on the page. And I would find myself sometimes hung up. And I would realize, I would come to the understanding, oh, there's something in me that is keeping this
Sure,
character vague, or it's keeping this character from really exposing their heart because I'm afraid of the ugly side. I'm afraid of what happens in my own life when those
sure,
things are exposed. And I realized at that point, I'm like, if I'm going to write a powerful story, then I actually have to get healed because it's out of the healing that I actually can allow my character to expose the dark places that actually bring light to the story. And so for me as an author, I couldn't write without being healed. I couldn't really go deep without allowing healing to come. And it was kind of an amazing experience to allow myself to tell my story on the page. This is fantasy, this is fiction, but there would be bits and pieces, realities from my own life that I went, you know what? I'm going to dive into this and how this felt. And it would actually help me walk into forgiveness to be able to talk about it and to be able to expose it, if it were like some of the dark areas or the traumas or the things that happened in my life through my characters. And it was an extraordinary gift. And what even more was when some of my family members would read my book and they would encounter the same healing because they had gone through the same traumas.
wow, that's interesting.
And that was a powerful thing for me also to encounter as a writer, to know that that was possible. And it's like that desire, I want to be whole. So if that's part of the friendship, and I don't know if all writers experience that, but for me, I did. If that's part of the partnership of me becoming a writer, then I'm all in because it makes it more extraordinary. It actually makes me attached to my characters even more and brings them more alive to me because I know them and they know me, and we're not afraid of each other, and we're not afraid to tell each other stories. And so that it's like really inviting that gifting in on an extraordinary level when you can attach yourself to writing in that way.
Her name is Angela Hughes. Go to her website, angelarhughes.com. Always encourage you to go and visit and buy a copy of her book or two. Helping authors and helping writers and helping creatives. It's what we do here. Angela, hold the book up one more time so everybody can get a great look and a glimpse of it. It's
It's really
called,
pretty.
the series is called Once and Future Chronicles, Eleanor and the Song of the Bard. It's been an absolute delight to have you on our program. We ask you perhaps to return now and then. I want you to know that I'm Dr. Steve Bonenberger, and we've been at this a long time, have we not? And it's always beautiful to be able to introduce and to bring to your attention new people that we are in community with and that we think have gift that needs to have a broader megaphone, if you will. Till next time, I remind you that I'm Dr. Steve Bonenberger, and this is Moments with Dr. Steve. Travel far.